over the section on Lech Lecha, Breshit Yudalad Pasuk Yud, Genesis 14:10. It's page 57 in the Lech Lecha section. So we're talking about the war of the five kings against the four. The Emek Hasidim, the Emek with a munach. So this is going to pause from what we've heard before and move on from there. So maybe we'll recap that there is a rebellion, and we've named the players, and we've named the first steps within the battle, and now we're going to continue on to the fate of the king of Sdom. The Sdom group initiated their strategy by choosing the site of and a valley as the most convenient location for an attack, as indicated by the shape of the reading mark. So I think here we're actually taking the shape of this as something that is down and low to say that an Emek. So we've used this device before, where rather than take the normal approach to the notes, we've used them also as directional markers, or actually markers of the shape of something that's involved. So because we're talking about a valley, this is something that goes from a higher place to a lower place. Hasidim, of the Sidim, with a Rivi'i. So this is a note that is going to have sort of a pause with it, and it's going to broaden the meaning of the word and allow it to collect our focus for a while. Number two, because the topography allowed them to hide in the lowlands, they took advantage of the Sidim, and he's translating the word Sidim as fields from the word Sadeh, being masked by the vegetation there, as stressed by the shape of the reading mark. So you can imagine you've got a low place with lots of cover, and that's what he's trying to imply that the Rivi'i is telling us, that this is somewhere where there is lots of places to hide, and you can hide an army in there and perhaps not be seen. Be'erot, wells, with a mapach, so this is going to collect what's come from before and narrow it in focus. Number three, furthermore, additional obstructions for the enemies were built in the form of wells, because the water table was easily reached, as stressed by the shape of the reading mark. So, again, we're taking the concept of this is a place where you can hide your troops, and you can also set traps. So they're setting traps in preparation for the battle. That's what the be'erot are. Be'erot, the second word, same word, but different note. This is a pashta, so this is going to emphasize the word a little bit and point us forward towards what's going to come. Other obstacles like trenches and pits were prepared to put a halt to invaders, as denoted by the directional shape of the reading mark. So you'll notice that we've got the same word twice, and we've defined it in two different ways. The question is, how do we manage to do that? And I think what he's trying to do is we've taken the concept of a well from underneath with a note that comes under the word, and a pit that has sort of edges and something that's looking, you usually look up from there. So he's got that as the one with the note on top. So he's defined the same word twice differently by using where the note is placed on the word. Chemar.
So what if that word was in a different context, stood alone? What would it be?
Be'er is usually translated as a well.
Oh, okay.
Right? But when you're looking down towards it, when you're looking what gathers inside of it, what it focuses, as it focuses water, and therefore the underneath note with the mapach is where it focuses the water. It's a well. The other definition is when you're looking up from it. Well, if you're looking up from it, it's got to be dry, so it's just a dry pit. So based on your perspective,
Yeah.
it's the same hole. The question is there something filling it up or not? Chemar, to restrain the attackers even more, ditches of clay from the locale were improvised, and after filling them with water, they intended immobilizing the armies, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. This is a katon. This is a two-part note. So he's saying that there are two elements to this. It's not only clay; it's clay and water. So he's sort of making quicksand traps for. So we're preparing all of these defenses so that somebody trying to rush your army will not have a good time of it. Vayanusu with the tavir. So this is the mercha with the dot sheltered inside of it. So this is usually taken to be something that's got a concept of something being sheltered. However, instead of launching an assault against the Stomite group from the front, Amraphel circumvented all barricades and approached from the rear, causing panic and disorder. As a result, they gave up fighting and they escaped to save their lives, as suggested by the shape of the reading mark. So normally, we take this note as something that is being secured. Here, they've prepared all of these defenses, and they're sitting there behind their defenses like the dot, and they're being snuck up on from behind. That's the mercha. The note that's surrounding the dot is them coming from behind and getting around all of those defenses that they've carefully dug. So we're noticing that again. We're using the note as like a play when you watch them play football on the little screen. If you're here, we're coming from behind. So that's I think the device that we're trying to use here. And we have a further note. This tactical maneuver was applied by the German forces during World War II at the Maginot Line. So World War I had ended because there was basically a stalemate against with a big line of dug-in defenses, and the strategy after World War I to stop a greatly superior German force was to build even bigger and stronger defenses. And what the Germans did is they just drove around the edges of it and encircled it, and it crumbled. So Melech Stom, king of Stom, number 7 with a mercha, lightly connected to what's come from before and mostly moving forward into what's going to go afterwards. So the question is, do we look into Tanakh to develop battle strategy? And quite obviously, he's given the same answer, that we look into Tanakh to develop battle strategy. By the way, number 7. Just as the king of Stom had begun the uprising preaching heroism, he was the first to flee when he encountered danger, setting a new example for cowardice and failing to confront a challenge, defying his own directives to others, as expressed by the directional reading mark and by being mentioned first. So it doesn't mention the army, it mentions the king first. So he's the one who is literally lightly connected to the battlefield but running away from it. Va'amora, with the tipcha, with the closing note, with a pause after it. Number 8. Oh, sorry, we've got a note again on Melech Stom. It appears that some renowned, quote, heroes who do not hesitate to sacrifice life of others when were often insecure cowards, fearful and deprived of courage with regard to themselves. And he obviously, your father obviously had somebody in mind when he wrote this. This is obviously a political comment, and I'm not sure who he's talking about. But
probably German.
Perhaps.
But yeah, that's a personal comment, and you can You can reflect on that and see that he put his own personality into the book. Va'amorah with the Tzipcha, number 8. The behavior of the leading kings of Sdom and Amorah acted in similar fashion, and that's why the Tzipcha looks backwards to say that he's doing the same thing as Melech Sdom, as specified by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So the leadership has all decided to leave, and then we're left with a pause to see what happens. Vayiplu Shama, and they fell there, with the elevating at Nachta. The surprise tactic of Kedar LaOmer resulted in abrupt tumult, turbulence, and disorganization among most of the rebels, and they fell there, as illustrated by the stabilizing shape of the related reading mark. So the question is, what stability is this? Well, that's how a war ends. The war ends when one side loses. So a situation that could have gone one way or the other is a situation that has energy to it, and once one side is lost, the energy goes away, so you do reach a point of stability. That is one of the things that war does. War creates a new stable reality after it's finished, or even more philosophically, a new definition of right, or what history was going to have been. The Hanisharim with the Tzipcha, so again looking backwards towards the scene of the defeat. The civilians and the remaining soldiers who had a chance to survive attempted to find safety in the area and look for hiding spots, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So upon surveying the defeat, those people who are left pause, and Hera towards mountain. After the positions in the valley had failed, the survivors went upwards towards mountain and high land, as conveyed by the directional shape of the reading mark. Rashi spends a fair amount of time trying to figure out what Hera really means, and he plays the word Hera against Hahara, to the mountain. So what Rashi tells us is that words that begin with that would have a lamed in front, to something, when you're trying to abbreviate them, you can abbreviate them by putting a hey at the end. So har doesn't have a hey at the end, but towards mountain would have a hey at the end. So lahar, to the har, would be ha-hara, to the mountain. But hera is to a non-specific mountain, to a mountain. And I think the translation here, towards mountain, agrees with Rashi's definition that this is, they just see any place that's high ground, and they figure, oh, we're in this low ground and it's a trap. We're going to whichever high ground we can find, because it's safer there. So a very good agreement with what Rashi says on this. Nasu, they ran, with the stabilizing Sof Pasuk, number 12. They ran whenever they could escape disaster fast, wherever they could escape disaster fastest, taking shelter in the bushland. I didn't quite understand where he got bushland from here, because they're running towards the mountain. But at this point, I couldn't think of anything that is inherent in a Sof Pasuk, inherent in the concept of stability, that says that a place with some type of cover is better than being on a mountain. But I think that's why he says bushland, because somehow he thinks that you won't stick out if you're hiding behind a bush rather than hiding on top of a mountain. As we read through the pasuk, we're going to notice that the valley itself is going to stand out, because it's where they've planned all of these things. The Erot Chemar, all the traps that they've set, and then all of a sudden the surprise by Anusu with a pause both before it and after it. That the attack came as a surprise, and it's a thing in and of itself. Melech Sdom v'Amorah grouped together, the two cowards fleeing the battle first, Vayiplu Shama, and not only them, but a large amount of their force falls in battle there. Vanisharim, and those people looking back on the battlefield, pause, and then Hera, they run towards the mountain, Nasu, and towards the bushland. So, we'll read through it and we'll try to overemphasize the pauses. V'yemek hasidim be'erot chemar vayanusu stom v'amorah vayiplu shama v'hanisharim hera nasu. And we'll continue on. We're at the bottom of page 58. Vayikhu. Make sure that this is redoubled.
What color was this? That's what we have here.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at the note, and it is not doubled here, and it's doubled here. That's why I'm looking at it. So, yes. So a Tlisha Gdola is always placed at the beginning of the word, even if that is not the accented syllable. But if the accent is on a different syllable, then you usually will have a second one of the same note on the accented syllable. So there should be a second Tlisha on the chet.
Mm-hmm.
And it is in here, and it is in the tikkun. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And he doesn't mention anything about it being doubled in his commentary. And they took number one. So this is a backwards-looking note, connects you to what's happened from before, and has a pause after it. So it's going to be separated from the rest of the sentence. In order to prevent any further uprising, Kedar Omer emptied all those settlements with the help of his soldiers, and they took the total population of the area into captivity, as indicated by the shape and placement of the reading mark. So looking back at all of those people who are trying to run away, and I think the doubling of the note is because we've got people running to different places. So the people who run up and the people who ran across, he's getting all of them. So that's what I surmise the doubleness of the note is about. But he's looking back towards that, and he's mopping up the rest of the battlefield. Et kol rechush with a pashta. So this is going to push us forwards and pause ever so slightly after it. With all wealth. Together with the people, the invading forces took along all mobile personal belongings with all wealth that could be found, as shown by the directional shape of the reading mark. So they're taking everything and they're moving on with it. So they're going to bring it forward. Sodom, of Sodom, with a dargah. So this is sort of a downward staircase. All personal assets, public belongings, installations, and treasures of Sodom were removed and adequately placed for transportation, as stressed by the shape of the reading mark. So they're taking it from where it is and they're putting it onto the wagon. They're putting it onto something that is going to allow it to move from where it is to where they want to take it to. Va'amorah with the tavir. This is again that sheltered note. Along with other centers of uprising, each place in Amorah was plundered for all the possessions and valuables, as denoted by the shape of the reading mark. And again, if the purpose of war is one of the purposes of war is to take the spoils of war, then for the victors, that is sort of the end of the battle. This is where things calm down once you've managed to take the spoils away. So there's really no more fighting at this point. Viet kol ochlam, and with all their food, with the tipcha, looking backwards, and again pausing after it, along with other centers of uprising, each place in Amorah was plundered from all possessions and valuables. Number 5. The invaders were not satisfied merely by capturing the people along with their chattels, and with all their food and reserves, they planned to starve those who remained in hiding, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So in order to finish off anybody who might be left behind, they not only took the gold and the silver, they took the food as well. Vayelech, and they went with Sof Pasuk, again the stabilizing note. They accomplished a total cleanup, and they went back in the direction of their homeland. So as we read through this sentence, we're going to notice that the word Vaikhu pauses afterwards. So they're still looking back on the scene of the battle. They're not sure if there's still anything more to do. So they're going to take the possessions. They call Rechush Stom V'Amorah. Those are going to be phrased together. They're going to take what's going to make the victory in war complete. Viet kol ochlam, and not only that, you're going to look back and you're going to say, well, maybe there are a couple who might rise up against us again, who are left behind. No, we're going to do something so that they can't come after us either. And then once all of that is done, then they're going to go. So we'll see that the pauses sort of group things that way and emphasize it. Vayikhu et kol rechush Sedom v'Amorah v'et kol ochlam vayelechu. And we continue on. We're still on page 58, the other corner.
It's just a fictitious book, but it's following the battle strategy taking place in Egypt in 1700 BC.
Unfortunately, this is common strategy that you have to leave the population behind unable to rise up against you again. Mm-hmm. And there are a variety of techniques that are used through history in order to do this. We in our generation are very fortunate to be distantly separated from the concept of totally vanquishing an enemy. There's this concept of a civilian now that really is a very modern concept that wasn't there before. Mm-hmm. And we have to think that if we're talking in the time before there were not necessarily formal armies. This is just you get every farmer, you give him blade and something sharp, and you tell him go and fight. He's got strong arms, he's got strong legs, he goes and he fights. So every member of the population is a potential threat because he's about as good as anyone else who's on the battlefield. He doesn't necessarily have the tactical knowledge, but you just tell him what you want him to do.
Yeah, that's a famous scene from the movie 300. Spartans. Sir, what's your profession? I'm a farmer. I'm a clay pot maker.
But that is sort of one of the main innovations that the Greeks brought, is that they had a trained professional army. Vaikhu, and they took, and that's one of the miracles of Hanukkah, is that it's actually against a trained professional army that they won, right. Which is something that's relatively new and allowed Alexander to sort of take over the world. That the Hanukkah miracle happened. So it's not only a battle; it's a battle against something that is that was so new and so overwhelming that it managed to conquer the vast majority of the world that they stood up. So it wasn't something. It wasn't just a victory. It was a victory against the newest and the greatest and the thing that seemed invincible.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I think the Greeks also invented a horn-shaped knife that says, "I shall not kill you because you're my brother."
We wouldn't know about things like that.
Right.
We'll figure it out on Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
Vayikhu, and they took 1412, the bottom of page 58, number 1, with a pashta. So again, moving the story forward, they captured the inhabitants of Sdom and associated cities, and they took along individuals who were living on the periphery of those places, even though they were not directly involved in the rebellion, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So now they're cleaning up the surrounding area, and they're taking things from there as well. Et Lot, with the dargah, again, this going down the staircase concept. Similarly, the invaders who dealt with Lot, although he was living on the outskirts of Sdom, and due to his age, he could not participate in military activities of the uprising, as shown by the shape of the reading mark. So he was someone who was in his declining years, going down the staircase, if you will. So he wasn't a military threat, but they took him presumably for ransom purposes. Viet rechusho, and with his assets, with the tavir, so the sheltering note. Along with him, they took away his family and his assets, just as with anyone else in the region of the cities, as stressed by the shape of the reading mark. So this is going to tell you that this is not only Lot who they're taking, but they're taking everything else that's in the surrounding area to empty it out, to not leave anything which could become a potential area where attack would come from again. So it's for their own stability. Ben Achi, son of, brother of, with the mercha, lightly connected to what's come from before, but mostly pushing the story forward. Although he made them aware of the fact that he was an immigrant and the brother of a previous resident of Mesopotamia, it had no effect on on changing their position, as denoted by the directional shape of the reading mark. So, despite saying that he was a non-combatant and somebody from another area, that didn't allow him any ability to stay where he was. Avram, with the tipcha, so this is backwards looking and closing the thought. On the contrary, since he was closely related to Avram, who was in disgrace and dangerous from Amraphel, Lot was even more suspect in aiding the rebellion against oppression, as suggested by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So these are the armies of the people where Avram had run away from, and he was already thought of as a rebel and a rabble rouser there. So this did Lot no good. Vayelechu, and they went. So again, the same word that ended the last pasuk with the sof pasuk is now here with the et nachta. So again, both times it has stability to it. When the victorious invaders learned about Lot's background, they took him prisoner, placing him under a reliable security guard, and they went with him to conduct further investigations, as expressed by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So they thought they had perhaps caught either a prize here, or caught a sympathizer or a saboteur or somebody who they could get information from about how the rebellion had started. Vihu, and he, with a mercha lightly connected to what was coming from before, but mostly going forward. Although Lot tried to prove to them that he came from their country and they had mutual friends, and he was only a recent settler in the place, it was all in vain, as specified by the directional shape of the reading mark. So his own personal situation was not something that could save him. Yoshev, a resident. So he's just somebody who's sitting there. He was someone from somewhere else, from where they were, but they don't treat him as a countryman. They maintained that he was a resident in that area because of dissatisfaction with his previous domicile, and that he was spreading hatred and unrest, as illustrated by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. There we have an English typo, by with an H on it. So again, Lot's protests go fall on deaf ears, and everything he says sort of gets him deeper in trouble.
Against him.
Bistom, on stom. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why it's translated as on, not in. In their opinion, Lot had transferred his emotional affections on stom, being in close contact with the people of that place. He also influenced them by past experiences and instigated their action. So again, the circumstances made it look even more suspicious as to why Lot was there. We have some remarks. At Lot